So silence your cell phones, hold your applause, and tune into the truth.
Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody.
Getting beat up by 9 guys in Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame in.
From the 315 to the world, this is the Heel to Face podcast.
The cream of the crop! Wow, man, freaked out!
Follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Heel to the Face.
I said, are you ready?
From Armory Square in downtown Syracuse, New York, let's send it now to Dustin, Brandon, and Jared.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
Another edition of the Heel to Face podcast, the penultimate show of WWE programming on the road to SummerSlam. We're about 10 days away from the event in Toronto. I'm joined, if you're watching on YouTube, to my right, as always, Brandon Clements. You can find him on Twitter at Icebreaker21, and myself at Jared, or at K-Rock Jared. I'm Jared, and more importantly, follow the show at Heel to the Face, coming off of Raw, SmackDown, and I think Brandon's favorite show from over the weekend, Smackville. He just wants to talk nothing but Smackville.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
all episode long.
110%. I want to talk Smackville the entire show. No, not at all.
No Smackville.
No.
It was what pretty much the Shield show was, right?
So we're gonna do this. I got the piece of paper. You can hear it on the microphone and see it on YouTube. That's Smackville for me.
And this is kind of why a lot of people always say, why don't they just televise more house shows for content? I guess that's a good reason why. Because that's what that was. It's the same as the Shield show, where they have a house show and then they just televise the last hour of it.
Yeah.
Now, here's a question. Talking about Smackville, let's not talk about the results, but the idea of Smackville, of televising an hour of a house show. I feel that there was probably more people in Nashville at the show because it all of a sudden was quote unquote TV show. It's still a house show, but they're like, hey, one of these matches is going to be live on the network. Do you think that's a good idea in the sense of selling house show tickets, meaning like, oh, they're coming to Syracuse, oh, they're coming to Binghamton, but that last hour of television, while it's still going to be a title match, because if you've ever gone to a WWE house show, the titles are always on the line. It could be the night before SummerSlam. It could be Rock versus Cena, one time only, the championship on the line, but in Elmira, New York, the night before, John Cena is going to screw up the SummerSlam plans and defend his title against Kofi Kingston in 2011. Obviously, you know the results, but either way, the titles are always on the line. Similar to what it was in Smackville. You knew Kofi was going to defend because they're not going to screw up SummerSlam thanks to Smackville. But the point is, do you think that helps television at all, or helps the attendance at all? Not television necessarily, but the attendance at all, knowing that they're kind of seeing a pseudo show, pseudo pay-per-view, if you will.
I don't think so. I don't think it's going to make a difference. House shows, I mean, wrestling fans are
I felt that Shield show, right? I mean, if you were in the area, would you have gone to that show knowing more that was like the Shield's last run versus if that was just a regular show?
I would. Okay, with the Shield's a different animal, because we all knew the writing on the wall. We knew John Moxley, Dean Ambrose, whatever you want to call him, was leaving. We knew this was going to be the last thing. That's different. But if it's just, to me, it was just another house show that you put on the TV or on the network.
If you live, let's say, because nobody drives out of the city. That's the thing about house shows. They're always in area crowds. Like a Syracuse, Buffalo example. I've driven to Buffalo a million times for televised shows. Never left Syracuse for a non-televised show.
No, I
wouldn't even go to Utica, which is about 40 minutes of here, for a non-televised show. But if, let's say, Smackville was happening in Utica, which is 45 minutes away from where we are right now in downtown Syracuse, would you have maybe made the drive to go to the house show in Utica, knowing that it was going to have some matches televised on the network, kind of, like I said, a pseudo TV show?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. You know why? I'm spoiled. You know, going to like a Raw or SmackDown. You know, I'm always about the storylines. I love wrestling. I'm a wrestling purist, but knowing the outcome of the match before it starts just kind of doesn't do it for me.
Well, being on the network kind of puts in that murky water of the fact that there could not be the outcome of the match. Obviously, with SummerSlam.
I don't think it would, because of SummerSlam. If it was like Battleground or one of those like odd pay-per-views, I'd say
the chance the title might change hands.
Maybe, but at the same time, it's still a house show. I don't see a lot of things changing with that. So that's why, even if we're going to put the last 2 matches on, so the last hour, make sure you're here going crazy cheering because it's on the network. To me, it doesn't make it it's not going to sell it to me anymore.
What kind of almost sold it to me, and I almost said it, not Smackville, but the first incarnation of this, if you remember, in 2016, it was before WrestleMania, when it ended up being the following year an actual pay-per-view event, but a house show in Toronto at what is the AHL arena, because, well, when you run house shows, you know you're not drawing an out-of-area crowd, you're only drawing people from within, so the house show is at the small AHL arena versus where SummerSlam will be, where the Maple Leafs play, but at last minute, it was turned into what became Roadblock, about 3 weeks before WrestleMania 32, which saw Triple H, who was the champion at the time, defending against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. He defended, I think, against Dean Ambrose at the event in like a last man standing match. You had Enzo and Cass, who were on the show prior to their NXT call up. They were before they got called up after WrestleMania 32. And I want to say Brock Lesnar, did he have a match? He had a match on the show.
Wait, he actually had a match on a show that was not a pay-per-view.
I think
or
it
Big
was.
Four?
You know
Wow.
what? He might not have.
Wow.
You know, he had a match. I think it was, and it was going to be against Bray Wyatt, but I think it was Bray Wyatt that ended up being the one to back out. We didn't end up having Bray Wyatt at this event, and then we ended up not having Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 32. But the point, or in a wrestling capacity, I think Brock might have took on Luke Harper in defense. I don't remember the Roadblock card, but I remember the event pretty well. It was a Saturday night. It was a WWE Network exclusive. They televised the entire show. The entrance, just like Smackville, was just a traditional house show entrance. It looked like a house show in the sense of everything was blacked out except for the ring, which kind of I kind of like that. You know, let's just focus on the fact that the production value. They could do that for a regular pay-per-view. The way, let's say, SmackDown was or Smackville was presented, Roadblock, The Shield's Last Stand, where it essentially looks like a house show with the ring only being the one spotlighted and kind of the smaller house show entrance. I'm fine with that for a Battleground or an actual pay-per-view event.
A small pay-per-view, not the big.
Well,
boys.
no, they're not going to do that for SummerSlam, but
No.
I mean, anything might be still a little bit different for SummerSlam.
Speaking of SummerSlam, I know I don't want to jump too far out of order here, but I know it's in Toronto. That's like your home. You know, are you
we're
going
not
up?
guaranteed to go yet. I won't be
Okay.
going up for NXT. I was originally thinking about doing that. I'm not going up for that. If I go up, it'll be for the day only for SummerSlam. Tickets are starting at 1:30 for any seat in the house. So, well, it shows that Toronto is a major city. So good for WWE in picking a city that they can definitely bank on if they want to return for big events,
Absolutely.
Survivor Series, SummerSlam. This isn't going to end up being like Stomping Ground. 20,000 seats have already been sold. They're only available on secondary markets, but tickets do go down a little bit. I probably will be heading up to SummerSlam for the day. And hey, maybe Monday Night Raw the following night, because tickets for that are actually still only about $20.
Really, $20?
Well,
That's not bad at all.
Again, that's the price
Wow.
you pay. WrestleMania weekend, when they have all these shows in back-to-back sequence, is different because you have people from out of town who are going to hit up all the shows. SummerSlam is a different animal. It's some people who are probably going to drive up for the weekend or for the day. But when you have Raw and SmackDown the following two nights in the same building, the interest kind of dies off because, again, this isn't WrestleMania. People aren't flying from all over the world to SummerSlam. So the night after SummerSlam in the same building, you can imagine if SummerSlam tickets are so expensive, the Raw and SmackDown tickets are going to be not so expensive
True.
because of the fact that everyone's putting their money in SummerSlam and then leaving town.
So speaking of SummerSlam, what are your thoughts on the build at this point? Are we happy with the build? I mean,
I feel, and I thought this heading into SummerSlam, I didn't realize it was coming up so close. I remember a couple weeks ago, I realized when they said it's in 3 weeks, because SummerSlam to me, it feels more like an end of August, an August 20th, an August 25th, you know, where normal pay-per-views sit near the ends of the month. So being August 11th, which is essentially a week and a half into the month. So we're going to have a big break between August pay-per-view and the September pay-per-view. It's not getting the build and sense of Roman Reigns. We're going to know who he fights with less than a week to go. We don't know.
great build, by the way?
Do you have an idea who knocked who tried to quote unquote kill Roman Reigns on SmackDown?
I don't even know. I can't even fathom an idea at this point. I don't know. Who do you think? Any ideas?
I just hope it's not Drew McIntyre. I'm sick of that crap.
I know. That was going to be my name, and I'm hoping and praying it's not that. Speaking of predictability,
Another match that was made. Are you going
Trish Stratus?
Trish Stratus
That is so predictable.
versus Charlotte Flair? Saw that coming.
Yeah, wow,
Again,
great job.
with 2 weeks again. But here we go. We'll have one show to make the match, and now one show to kind of build the match, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's SummerSlam.
This is bad booking, by the way. This is horribly booked. When you have a Hall of Famer like Trish Stratus, a marquee name, many fans like myself growing up, it was all about Trish Stratus, Lita, just to name those, Ivory, Jackie. I mean, just to name a few. that, when it's like era versus era, like, where's the hype? Like, it literally, like, I'm watching King's Court, on SmackDown, and I'm like, all right, so Trish Stratus is here. So here's what's going to happen. I predicted it before it happened. I'm like, all right, so Charlotte's
why else
going to
would
come
Trish
out,
Stratus be in Memphis, Tennessee? We all knew SummerSlam is in her hometown of Toronto. Charlotte doesn't have an opponent.
Well, and that's the thing, too. When Charlotte was complaining the last couple weeks about not having an opponent, it was kind of the you can read between the tea leaves. You just knew. And it's to me, it was poorly booked already. Honestly, you know what I'd like to see, but obviously there's, WWE does these things and puts it together last minute. I'd like to see an HBK, Ziggler match.
That's what I was crossing my fingers for this past week, but unfortunately it looks like we're going to get Ziggler versus The Miz. But I was hoping, especially when he came out on Raw, he came out with the HBK music. Dolph Ziggler. So I was really that heightened my anticipation for the fact that we might be able to see Ziggler versus HBK.
And it's Ziggler just being a trolling again. I mean, I was hoping we'd see HB Shizzle back out, but
maybe next week he'll be made in like a special guest referee capacity. Would you at least like to see that, or no? Because obviously, if it's special guest referee, it's going to screw Ziggler.
Yeah, I mean, that part's too predictable. As much as I'd like to see, HB Shizzle, in the match.
Stop saying that.
I love that. I love HP. That's why I call him HP Shizzle. I've been ever since he came out with that. That's I love Shawn Michaels. That's my guy. Been a fan of his forever. But yeah, I mean, using him as a ref, it's too predictable. Again, WWE is very predictable with these things lately. Honestly, I would like to see him in a match. It looks like that's not going to happen. So we're just going to have to hold out hope for maybe a HB Shizzle. I'm going to keep saying it. Maybe in a later pay-per-view.
So here's a question. We obviously saw the new tag team champions, the OC, made on Monday Night Raw. Now, the OC has all the belts in the sense of the U.S. belt and the Raw tag team belts. Where do you see this going? Maybe a 6-man tag at SummerSlam for these guys? Or where do you see AJ and the OC kind of going into SummerSlam?
Yeah, I could see it being a 6-man tag. I think that's the easy way of doing it. I mean, WWE hasn't been, once again, they haven't been very creative. They're not doing things, they're kind of doing things off the cuff, it feels like. It's just not, they're just kind of putting things together.
Well, because again, we only have about 10 days before SummerSlam, and it feels like we're only 10 days removed from Extreme Rules.
I will say this. I do like the fact that you have AJ Styles and you have Gallows and Anderson. So the whole OC, I like this. They got the titles. I think this is good for the business, but at this point so far, poor booking. It's probably going to be New Day versus OC. I mean, honestly, that'd be a kind of match you're going to see at Survivor Series. That'd be a better Survivor Series match. Throw those guys into something like that. I'd like to see something more with AJ Styles, especially at SummerSlam coming up. But I think that's where we're going. Now, I know before not to jump onto another program, but I know we were talking before the show about Moxley and Enzo and Cass.
Moxley is going to be facing, this is probably once of probably many on the touring, Scott, but we talked about Moxley and other AEW stars filling their time before television, and in about a few weeks, I saw one match advertises Kaz XL, that's his new name back in the thing, Big Cass. He's got Enzo as his manager. I'd assume they're probably tagging in some matches somewhere for this big time wrestling or this Northeast wrestling that tours that also is very veteran diluted. It's like half indie stars, half big names. It's going to have Rhino, Renee Young, Booker T, and then on top of all that, you're going to have Jon Moxley in the main event against Kaz XL with Enzo on his side. Kaz actually coming out this week and speaking about he'd like to make a return to WWE. Feels horrible about everything that happened in his last go-around with WWE. Obviously, rubbing shoulders and rubbing people the wrong way. Triple H, Daniel Bryan. All those guys.
Well, and he also put his hands on Carmella, supposedly.
Yeah, so all of that happened. He said he's really sorry for all that. Would love to return to WWE right now. He's just trying to stay in wrestling. He's going to face Jon Moxley in Scranton, Pennsylvania at the baseball stadium. I think it's August 20th, so it's a few weeks away. It's part of this Northeast Championship Wrestling. It's Northeast or Big Time Wrestling, one of these ones that is, like I said, very, very veteran. It's not a local promotion as much as it's one that banks off of selling the stars. There's indie promotions all over the country, but there's these few that really bank off selling stars and kind of getting bigger crowds, drawing bigger than like American Legions, drawing baseball stadiums or bigger gyms or little arenas and bank off of having tons and tons of old WWE guys and current WWE announcers. This is the one that Corey Graves is often at, Mick Foley's often at, Renee Young's often at. So he's going to be back in action against Jon Moxley. Again, I asked you this question before. Jon Moxley wrestling here, does this take any heat off Jon Moxley and being in AEW in the sense that we can just see him, floating around the Scranton, PA baseball yards on a summer night as part of these indie feds? Does this take any mystique? A good thing is, one thing I've noticed, Kenny Omega hasn't really ever done a lot of this.
I will say this. Kenny Omega can do what he wants. I mean, Kenny Omega, I'm just speculating. Maybe he might have some sort of lingering injury. I know he had that before, so maybe he just wants to stay rested up for AEW. I don't know. I haven't spoken.
He could have competed at New Japan Wrestling in Madison Square Garden, but actually chose not to.
Yeah, I mean, I've things I've read before in the past was that he was resting. He was grind. He was kind of out of it, so to speak. The grind was just getting to him. Just needed a little bit of a break to get a breather and things like that. Moxley, I will say this. I don't, to answer your question, I don't think it's going to affect the fire that he's on right now. I think it's great.
The stock, I guess, is the best way. The value that he has.
I don't think it's going to affect it because it's not like he's wrestling at these baseball shows every week. It's kind of.
I think he really is though. I know this is just one. I think though I've seen him advertised a few different places. Whether it be New Japan and him. Trying to go for those belts.
I don't think
I've seen him advertised pretty much all summer long, all over the place.
But it's not as big as that show, though. It's not. I don't think it's. I think it's American Legion type things.
Well, then is that not worse though? Him obviously
not really
wrestling in front of people at the American Legion. I guess if you see him wrestle in front of people at the American Legion, you drop your stock because then how much are people really excited to see you? When you're in AEW, I think The Undertaker is a good example of that. The Undertaker right now, even though he's in WWE, because he's making so many more appearances, seeing him is way less of a value than it used to be.
It's different because Taker is, obviously he's past the back nine of his career, to be honest with you.
Yes.
But Moxley, and if you go back and listen to the Chris Jericho, interview that he had on his podcast, this is stuff that I was not surprised that now that it's coming out, I'm not surprised that he's doing this because he has more creative control. He like we talked before, he was considering a CCW. He was considering going there before AEW. So he doesn't care about the big size crowds. He just wants to wrestle. I don't think it is going to affect his stock. I think he's fine. I don't see this being an issue. AEW is they're going to do fine. And Kenny Omega, he's doing what he needs to do. He's probably just doing it as a breather, maybe lingering injuries or whatnot. Chris Jericho, I'm not worried about this. I think AEW is fine. Moxley's stock is fine. I think it's a non-issue.
So AEW, we announced last week their first show television-wise is going to be October the 2nd, is a Wednesday night. Originally, we always thought it was going to be Tuesday. Maybe it will be, but just one show. They're not putting out a tour schedule just yet, just announcing the one show. It's going to be at the home of the Washington Wizards and Washington Capitals, the Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. When tickets go on sale this Friday, which will be August the 2nd, tickets will start at $20, and a ringside seat will cost you $250. I mean, that seems, the prices I'm looking at, $20, $35, $50, $75, they seem about average. They seem about WWE just maybe a little bit higher than a house show price.
Yeah.
So I see they're not giving them away. They still do have a value, $250 for a ringside seat. It's not a pay-per-view event. Remember, it's a TV show. It'll be on from 8 to 10 o'clock. So they're going for 2 hours. Kenny Omega, Jon Moxley will be a part of it. The Young Bucks, I believe, are going to be in a 6-man tag with Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho and 2 partners of his choosing. They haven't made that decision yet.
Yeah.
And the other one official match, Cody Rhodes against Sammy Guevara.
It's Guevara.
Guevara. He knows more of the indie wrestling than me. I'm a WWE mark. Just kidding. But
usually it's the other way around.
But that is the one. I guess that is your main event or your first announced match. But again, it is so weird to look at this because, again, they're putting so much stock in a television show. Remember, this is supposed to be a weekly thing. This is going to happen every single week. So, obviously, they're putting a lot of stock and a lot of promotion into their first show. But remember, you got to have just as much next week and the week after and the week after that.
Here's the thing. They're going to go all out for the first show. I mean, we kind of already figured that. I don't expect every single show to be guns blazing. I think they're going to set the world on fire, so to speak, with this show. And then the rest of them are going to be quality. It's going to be good programming. They just have to start off on the right foot. And I think it's the TNT AEW. I like it. I think it's a good mix. Just kind of brings you back to when we were kids, like the Nitro. It's going to be cool to see wrestling on TNT again. I think it's cool.
It's going to be announced this week, apparently, what the name of the show will be. And again, how long do you see until they start announcing lots of dates? Because, like, let's say WWE right now, they've got tickets on sale for like 50 different events. So AEW obviously is going to have to start doing this too. October 2nd is the first show. So October 9th, they're going to have to put tickets on sale for that. Probably pretty soon, start advertising that one as well. And, what do you expect? I kind of get this weird feeling about AEW, similar to what we had with Impact Wrestling. Now, I know it's not a pay-per-view event, but if you remember when Impact Wrestling, TNA, NWA first started, they didn't have weekly television. They had weekly pay-per-views. It was $9.99 every Wednesday from what they called the Asylum, the Nashville Fairgrounds back in the day. And it was a 2-hour pay-per-view event, which was essentially their TV show. They didn't have monthly pay-per-views. They just had weekly pay-per-view events. And I feel we're going to kind of get that, at least for the short term, from AEW, where there's going to be a lot more focus on matches, and they're going to be presented like little pay-per-view events.
I could see that. I think you bring up a fair point.
Like, there'll be like Raw right now. What do we have? Probably 4 or 5 matches on Raw total. Yeah, and that's over 3 hours. Let's say SmackDown. What do we have in 2 hours in SmackDown? 3 or 4 matches at most.
Maybe
3.
Matches, yeah.
I feel we're going to get a good 6 matches every 2-hour card with AEW, at least for the start.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. I think it's a good idea to kind of hit the ground running. I don't think compared to the first show to show 2, I don't think they're going to come out as guns blazing, but I could see something like that where they really put the first 2 months of shows, like really they just push hard for them.
I think the big thing is too, because people aren't accustomed, like with Raw and SmackDown, we've become accustomed to knowing what we're going to get when we go to those shows. There's still a lot of people who aren't accustomed to those. That's why they have the dark matches on Raw and SmackDown, because I've mentioned it millions of times. There's lots of parents who bring their kids. They don't watch Raw and SmackDown. They go to SmackDown. There's 2 matches, and they go to the box office, and they go, what the hell was that? I don't watch wrestling on a weekly basis, but I brought my kid to the show to see all these wrestlers, and for 1.5 hours, they talked, and for 30 minutes, they wrestled. What the hell is that about? That's why anyone who talks normally on SmackDown participates in a dark match, so that you can actually go home and tell your friends, and the parents can say they went and they saw AJ Styles wrestle, not just come out and talk, or not even come out, talk in the back. So I feel with AEW, they're going to have to do that too. They don't have that reputation yet where some guy can take his kids to go see professional wrestling and is going to be knowing that they're going to be talking the whole time. He's going to want to see wrestling. That's what he paid for. And that's what a lot of people, essentially with this first show, I think a lot of them would be kind of disappointed if it turned out to be like a SmackDown we're used to, where if they pay all this money for these ringside seats and they find out that there's like one match, Cody Rhodes doesn't even make an appearance. He just shows up on the jumbo screen in the back talking, to a reporter. Chris Jericho comes out just to chit chat for a second and then leave. I think to really get the ground running, get people used to television shows, you're going to have to actually be performing in front of the crowd so that people are getting their money's worth before you start having these shows where, remember Raw back in the day, the biggest segment ever in Raw history got such grief, So This Is Your Life with Mick Foley and The Rock, which took up like 45 minutes of airtime of a 2-hour show. Biggest watch segment, but at the time, if you didn't know anything about wrestling and you took your kids to wrestling because that's what they like, and you paid $50 and you got good seats, you'd have been pretty pissed off to watch one match and then watch 45 minutes of chatting.
And that's the thing. And kind of going with SmackDown, we'll kind of go there. Now, what did you make of, I would say, the Sami Zayn and Aleister Black? Are you excited? What are your thoughts?
I feel that that's an Aleister Black easy win. If that happens in SummerSlam, that's going to be an Aleister Black easy win. I feel they're really just trying to promote him really well. Sami Zayn, they're doing a little bit to promote him, but not really in the main event picture, kind of where you feel it's really believable. He just is just spouting out typical heel stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing too, and I want to see how this goes because I really like Aleister Black, and I hope they do not misuse him like they have with other superstars. For example, we're looking up here.
Speculation that Buddy Murphy is behind the Roman Reigns attack on SmackDown. That would be out of left field.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, why I said I'm sick of seeing Drew McIntyre. Would you rather see that?
You know what? I don't think Buddy Murphy's that bad.
Well, that's not what you add. That's not a good.
I know.
That's not a good way to go into a SummerSlam match by saying,
it's okay, it's not bad.
I don't think he's that bad. You don't want to go to, a WrestleMania and go, hey, are you excited for the WrestleMania main event? And you have the answer of, it's not the worst match in the world.
Yeah.
You want to be a little more excited about it than that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it if they're, I mean, not the way they're doing it. Like, I don't want to build it as Roman Reigns versus Buddy, but if they put him in a match versus Buddy on a regular SmackDown, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and then my problem is we've been talking about the short build to SummerSlam. If it is going to be Buddy Murphy behind this attack,
awful build.
You're going to need more than a week for me to care about it.
Exactly. It's going to take, you got to give me at least a month or two, right?
Yeah, I mean, look how long it took us for Kofi Kingston. I mean, could you imagine if Kofi Kingston was thrown in the WrestleMania Championship match with like a week planning?
And it would suck. That's what it would suck. I mean, it
took us a long time to get accustomed to Kofi Kingston becoming the champion. And to be honest with you, it's kind of interesting. We had in the SummerSlam, Kofi Kingston taking on Randy Orton. Are you believing Randy Orton as a potential championship candidate? Because, I mean, this is normally, we got to think about it. SummerSlam is normally the time. If you had the belt at WrestleMania and you still have it at this time, this is about the time that you 99% of the time lose it by now. And SummerSlam typically.
Unless you're like AJ Styles. But at this point, I don't think Randy Orton's winning the title. I mean, we'll go into it more, obviously, Smack or SummerSlam.
Because I feel if Kofi Kingston wins the belt at SummerSlam, that like signs you up for more months, not just one more month, but more months, because then you leave the big event and then you start having what, again, Kofi has is the lesser matches. Like Kofi, when he took on people, while they might have been formidable foes, after WrestleMania, you knew he wasn't going to lose the belt right away. It's the backlash theory. It's the event right after WrestleMania. You don't see someone winning the belt at WrestleMania and then dropping it to Hardcore Holly the next month. No, you see them building up to another thing. So if Kofi Kingston beats Randy Orton at SummerSlam, I got to think that, he's going to be holding the belt till Survivor Series.
Yeah, I would say that. I agree. I mean, Randy Orton's a great opponent. I mean, obviously with his history and everything, but at this point, I think you're right. I think Kofi rides into Survivor Series. And I know we talked about it earlier, but I'm thinking, obviously that's going to be towards the end of the year, of course. I still think it's a New Day 6-man tag, but if in your theory, if your theory holds up, then I could totally see a Kofi Kingston run all the way to Survivor Series. I mean, it's definitely possible. Randy Orton's he's going to get another title at some point. I mean, he's bound to get one. He hasn't had a championship in a while, so
let me ask you this. Now, I've got a video here from we talk about Randy Orton.
Yes.
If you were WWE, I don't know if you saw this, but he was on vacation in the Maldives with his beautiful wife, Randy Orton's official account. He put this out here. If you were WWE, you're Vince McMahon. I'm going to play this. What would your opinion, let's say, of this Instagram video and Randy Orton's use of language, if you will? Can you hear the video?
Yes.
Okay.
No, come here, get close.
You take too long for your
Where are you?
Where'd it go? Oh, you got to keep.
Sorry. All right, let's keep it up going.
It's a video. Hold on. This is good. No, come here, get close.
You take too long for your
Where are you?
picture.
Where are you? What the fuck? Alright, there she is. Holy shit, look at that ocean.
If you haven't seen this, check out Randy Orton's official account. He posted a picture with him and his wife.
Booty.
The booty.
I think I like that booty. Right here. Let's just do a quick, what is it? Panoramic.
Yeah.
So this is our Four Seasons, Landa, Maldives, private beach. Look at that lush greenery. Holy shit, this is awesome.
So exciting.
Give me a kiss.
Wait till the kiss here.
Wow. That's out of character, huh?
So, after watching that video, the Randy Orton video right here, what would your opinion if you were WWE? Use some language there, obviously. Being a little
I don't
PG-13, if you will, pushing on the R.
I think it's a non-issue.
Non-issue?
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. He's a happy man outside of the business. So, you know what? More power to him, So, at the end of the day, I'm okay with it.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the show. Randy Orton, love maker with his wife there. I guess good to see him with his wife because obviously all the rumors about him with many other kinds of people. But Happy to see him happy with his wife, so he can stay away from the rest of our girlfriends. But until next week, when we break down SummerSlam leading into the event, we'll give all our predictions of whether we see him leaving with the belt and all the other matches that will be made official by then. If you're watching on YouTube, on my right, that's Brandon the Icebreaker Clements. That's where you can find him on Twitter, and myself, K-Rock Jared, on Twitter and Instagram. Follow the show at Heel to the Face on Twitter and Instagram. Until next week, we'll give our SummerSlam predictions. Goodbye.